We're doing a test recording right now. Yep. Let's see how that sounds. Hello and welcome to Nerdy Up North's interview show. I'm your host Jake, and tonight I'm joined by Adam Ashbridge. He is Nerdy Up North's resident music maestro, guitar god, and giant. But more importantly, my best friend. Welcome in, Adam. How are you doing?
Oh, thanks, Jake. That was a nice little intro there. No, I'm doing okay. As I say, I'm back to work now after being off for a while, but still playing guitar all the time, whenever chance I get. So yeah, there's probably some new music coming soon for Nerdy Up North as well. So
oh hell yeah. But yeah, so that's what we're sort of here to talk about tonight. You are a legit musician. You play in bands and dabble online with like recordings and stuff, doing songs for people.
Yeah.
So I was just gonna sort of go into like some of that stuff and how you kind of feel about guitar at the moment. So firstly, I guess I kind of ask everyone a similar thing, but without further ado, Adam Ashbridge, we need to talk.
Yes, we do.
So, how did you kind of get your start into playing, right back when you first sort of picked up a guitar?
Well, when I first ever picked up a guitar, well, I say picked up, it was put on my lap because I was 5. It was my Uncle Neil, his guitar, because I always saw it when I was around his or around my gran's and stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously couldn't play back then, but I liked the way it sounded and always liked listening to him play. So fast forward a bit, I was 10 and I ended up getting one of those little Argos starter kits, I think it was like an Encore Strat or something like that.
Yeah.
With a little practice amp, little custom practice amp, like custom with a K because it was cool, you know.
I had a similar thing, but it was a little baby acoustic. But yeah, go on.
yeah. It was like a Sunburst Strat, like Tobacco Burst, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And started learning on that. Basically, like, I was awful when I first started, like everyone else, just like, oh, my fingers don't do this. I mean, fair enough, I was bigger than every other 10-year-old, I suppose. But no, because I was trying to like balance that between playing football all the time, but then I can't remember not being able to play much, but I remember, I think one of the first songs I learned, it was For Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica.
Oh, nice. That's like a nice, slow, easy riff to like get started on.
I just remember the and I was like, yeah. And then I started buying like Total Guitar magazines, and they had all the backing tracks on and the tabs in. But a lot of it, because of when I was 10, which was 1997, I used to just listen by ear from then on.
Yeah.
I started using tabs because I got lazy, like later on. But a lot of it was listening to like cassettes that my uncle had lent me and stuff like that. Like I remember when I was like 12 or 13, hearing Joe Satriani for the first time, and I was like, "What is this?" Like Surfing with the Alien.
Yeah.
Remember trying to learn that, and I was like, fingers don't move like that. That's not how it works. But
that's always like disappointing, isn't it? Because for anyone who doesn't know, I play drums as well, and you can definitely hear a song and be like, "Oh, cool! I really want to play this," and then you sit down and you're like, "Oh, hang on, I can't move like that." Like that's way harder than it sounds.
Yeah, it'd be like you listening to like a Gene Hoglan drum track.
Yeah, or like some Rush or something, and thinking like, "Oh, that's a really cool riff," and then you sit down and you're like, "Uh-oh."
Yeah, it's like, no, that's not me. I can't do that. But what I did was I went sort of back to the roots, like the first ever band I remember hearing. So I went back to trying to play Metallica stuff, and then I literally learned everything in Metallica's back catalogue, like start to finish. Because I remember when we first met properly was college, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely in like a musical sense, like to talk
Yeah.
about music together.
Yeah, it was when we went to Shiny Row College, and I remember like I was known as like the Metallica jukebox.
Oh, does that make me Lars? Did everyone call me Lars behind my
back? No, you were much better than Lars. Oh, mine is actually when I when I did the James Hetfield impression, when I put my guitar like basically like the strap like down to like nearly my ankles, and I put the beanie on, and yeah, that was fun.
Oh, we're talking load reload beanie.
Yeah. Tell you what, there's some cracking songs on those albums people don't realise.
Oh yeah, like that's what I always kind of in my mind. I'm like, yeah, I like thrash Metallica, and I take a dip for the Black Album because it was a bit sort of like, I don't know, I don't really like the production. Songs are fine. and then I come back to life when they went a little bit new metal, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting, and then they slid right off that cliff into Saint Anger.
Yeah, I tell you what though, if it wasn't Lars drumming, some of those songs would be great as well.
Yeah,
because there's this guy redid the full album's drums.
Yeah,
and it sounds phenomenal. Some of the songs, I'm like, God, they're actually really good. Some of them. Mainly because of James. Well, that's most of Metallica, isn't it? Cause,
yeah. When you think about it, he was pulling a lot of pulling a lot of weight on that album, like mentally and musically.
Yeah, because that was around the rehab time, wasn't it?
Yeah. And when they were filming some kind of a monster.
Yeah, that documentary's great. I love it.
It is.
So yeah, I went back to playing all that stuff, and then we started playing together like all the time. Started a metal band. It was like sort of. It was a weird mixture, wasn't it? It was like death metal and grind
and Primus.
Would you say it was? Would you say it was like sort of tech grindcore?
I guess, yeah, because like you were. Like, you're too technical for grind, and I don't mean that as an insult.
Yeah.
Like, there is definitely some technical people playing grind for sure, but what they do is they make their sound grungy and dirty. Like, you know, like it sounds unproduced and bad.
Yeah.
But they're still playing crazy technique on top of it.
Yeah.
And usually grind drummers are just insanely technically talented.
Yeah, like super fast but hit every note sort of.
But I don't really know what we were doing. It was kind of like death grind funk radio, something along those lines. We were just having fun writing silly songs about murders usually.
Yeah, it was
we didn't do any murders.
Well,
we didn't burn down Shiny Row either.
No, that happened much later.
And it wasn't us.
That happened in 2015 because I remember.
Because you're the memory man.
I am memory man, yeah.
So like,
no, but
this is kind of, to be honest, like this is obviously an interview, but we've both got kind of similar like musical backgrounds and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, so you were saying you sat down, you learned a Metallica song, and then you progressed into the back catalogue. Would you say that's like a good way to learn? Like for anyone who wants to learn, is that like a good way to do it, or should you branch out more? Like, do you have any feelings on like if that was a good idea for you when you started out?
Personally, for me, it was good because it got me picking technique down, like trying to play Metallica songs and then realizing you have to play mostly down picked. So yeah, that helped with the speed and the stamina. I remember some days after trying to learn Master of Puppets the first time, I would just sit. Well, I mean, I'll get my guitar for an example. You won't be able to hear it, obviously. But,
it's got props.
So like just sitting chugging
Yeah.
the low E and then adding some like riffage in like that. So like just sitting for like half an hour, just down picking.
That's a good point, I suppose, because like I guess what I asked was kind of like, is going through like someone's entire back catalog a good idea? But what you did was picked like a band that would get you good fundamentals, like a good spread of knowledge. So in that way, maybe that's the ticket. Like if you listen to like a sloppy band and learn all of their songs, you might pick up some weird habits. Whereas you went straight for like James Hetfield, one of the best guitarists in the metal world for sure.
But best rhythm guitar player probably.
Yeah.
One of. Even people who were so much more technical than him, like, say that he's the best. So it's like, so I believe those people because
yeah,
people. Well, it's a thing when you hear like songs like Battery.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me that's a human forearm playing that?
That's one of the craziest song, like the structured songs that I've ever sat and tried to learn. That was another one where I was like, oh no, I'm not gonna learn that on drums. Like Lars is good. We were joking about him. He's a weird guy, and he is technically good, but I think sometimes he tries to be too technically weird, and then that makes people think he's bad, but that probably makes him better. He's much
better
guy.
when he plays the simple stuff, even if it's like a when they do like them sort of like D beat sort of drum riffs. Like if he's doing that with like the triplet like in between, like with a double bass pedal, it's like it sounds great. He's really good at that. But yeah, you're right when he tries to put them weird like timings in when you see like the sheet music for like certain songs and it says this part goes to 8/4. Why?
Yeah.
Why? Or like,
but I think that's a good sort of thing about music. Like you can get in a trap of trying to be like to play outside your box, and you definitely have to. But like, there's definitely, I think, an element to like staying in your lane until you're ready to branch out. But like, is there any sort of techniques you learned early on that you've like since corrected because you found out like, oh, I was kind of playing that like in an unoptimal way or even a wrong way, I suppose you could have, like, because you are mostly self-taught, aren't you?
I'm totally self-taught, yeah.
Yeah, self-made man.
Self-made man. five-star man. Hey.
Yeah, so like, is there anything you've had to like unlearn recently, or did you take care of all that years ago?
Well, with the way my brain works now, like I didn't know I was autistic back then.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't know I was doing stuff in the most like sort of like almost the correct way without anyone telling us.
Oh, like as if you were like just mimicking what you'd seen from like live performances.
So yeah, I would watch videos of like Zakk Wylde, and I'd be like, oh, okay, and then just within like weeks to a month or whatever, be able to play nigh on exactly like him. So I would always be able to mimic my favorite guitarist. You're probably asking the wrong person about this sort of stuff because it's just, oh yeah, I could just do it.
Yeah, what do you know? The kids are natural.
No, but yeah, I understand it would be harder for other people, but like, yeah, like I think for me, the one thing I did need to fix recently in the last few years, I've sort of unlocked a new like potential for it, was me alternate picking.
Yeah.
That one because I was lazy.
All right.
But now I had the time with the pandemic and stuff to like sit and go like, oh, I was like doing too much motion with the wrist,
right.
Whatever. So now when I'm playing now, so you see like this is like where the guitar is. I sort of just move that part there. So like,
right.
Instead of doing this, you move just from like the wrist and just slightly the forearm instead of like moving the whole thing. But that was years of like trying to play as fast as Paul Gilbert and Malmsteen and stuff like that. So
yeah, like you like just trying to brute force it.
Yeah, and I was getting injuries off it actually. So that's a good tip for people. Don't overforce something. Everyone does have a speed limit. on
Oh, right, yeah.
guitar. Yeah, so you can't just. Well, I suppose there'll be some people where they can get as fast as like the heroes and stuff like that, but like it all depends on how well you've learnt the technique in the first place.
Oh.
So it's all to do with like the forearm muscles and stuff like that. So if you've had a weak technique the whole time you've been playing, it would take you years to get up to the speed you want to.
Oh,
Um,
right, okay.
you'd have to go back and start again, basically with that technique.
Which feels terrible if
Yeah,
anyone's played an instrument to try to try
yeah.
and work back because you're like, no, I've built up bad muscle memory like now, but it works.
Well, yeah. So that's basically what I had to do with alternate picking because I want to play as fast as like John Petrucci and people like that. But
Yeah.
sometimes even I know my limits now. Like if been trying to learn some Dream Theater stuff recently, and I'm like, I'm play all the riffs and that, and then the solo comes up, and I'm like, and that's come from me, someone who's been playing like 26 year this year,
Yeah.
and I'm like, there's a reason he played it. Like I don't have to play it, so
Yeah,
I'll just
true. That's his
yeah,
solo.
yeah. So like that's why it's funny because um I prefer playing like just making up solos than playing other people's
Yeah, yeah.
because I know what I can do like perfectly. So I put all of that into a solo instead of like trying like techniques that are other guitarists made famous or whatever. Like I know I do all the tapping like Eddie Van Halen and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
you can tell it's me playing stuff because I've always been told that it only takes a couple of notes for the person who's listening to know it's me.
Yeah. Definitely like if you've heard a lot of your stuff, like I have.
Yeah, so I've
But
got
that's
distinct style.
yeah, that's a good point though, because I suppose a lot of people will try and be like perfect mimics, but like at a certain point you do have to branch off and like forge your own like bit of a path. Like
Yeah,
everyone's in everyone who's playing music is like absolutely influenced and steals ideas from everyone because it just absorbs into your head. Like you can't stop it from happening.
no, so there's no chance. I mean, there's only so many notes as well.
True. And
Um,
there's even less drums.
yeah, yeah,
To be honest, like all drum riffs well beats are made up from everyone else's. It's like a core thing.
yeah, yeah. That's the thing. I mean, like my album that I did recently, for example, like all those beats you'll have heard in other songs
Yeah, yeah.
because you can't get away from that. There's only so many drums on a drum, like
Yeah.
pieces on a drum kit,
It's
and
rhythm. Some things work, some things don't, and that's just the magic of rhythm. Like
yeah,
everyone's
yeah,
just agreed upon things that work.
yeah. That's the thing. It's hard to be original these days in a world full of people who want to sound like someone else.
Honestly, like I don't know if this is anything you can speak to, but I don't really understand how you sit down and create a melody because that's not anything I've ever had to do. And I'm always like massively impressed by like, you know, guitarists and like vocalists who can just like sit down with a blank space and make like a new melody. Like is there anything that like thought wise goes into that, or is it literally just like an improvise until something like clicks and you're like, that's good?
Sometimes it's a bit of both. Sometimes I'll sit down and I'll have like a riff in my head or like a chord sequence, and as I'm playing that chord sequence or recording it, I can hear what melody I want in my head over the top of it.
Oh yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, I know this sounds like quite big headed. I'm usually like on the money, like
Yeah.
quite quickly. Because the melody in my playing over the recent years, I mean, you'll have heard, is just gone like just skyrocketed. Like, because I used to be like more like I've always been like a technical shredder, but
Yeah.
like I never went for those like really cool like melodic parts in the middle of solos like I'm doing now, where it's
Hmm.
like sort of like it's like a fast bit and then it goes into like a massive arch enemy influence there. So like it's
Yeah.
fast guitar player, then Michael Hammett comes in with like the wah melody, like sort of slow. Um, so yeah, that sort of thing like crept into me playing, and I wouldn't change it now because I love it. Like every time I sit down and play, I'll I'll do something like nice and slow-ish like that.
Yeah.
It even works over like the fast riffs as well, so it's nice bit of balance for
I
from
think
the all the notes.
I think like in metal especially, the slow stuff can be like very like exposing, if that's the right word, like
Yeah,
because everything, like, you know, a wall of sound like frequency wise cuts out,
yeah,
and you're left with just your solo or like your clean vocal melody line, and it's like,
uh,
if it's not good, like it's now the focal point, everybody's listening. So
mhm.
like you oftentimes, if you slow it down, don't have all the coverage of, like, you know, the wall of sound that
Yeah, exactly.
metal
Yeah,
kind of goes. So I can definitely understand why it's like it's taken you till you like were like at a high level of playing to be like, right, I'm ready now to like
yeah,
explore melodic.
yeah,
Because it's the same with drums. When something goes quiet and you're like, you know, tinkling around on cymbals, it's
yeah.
like, if it almost feels embarrassing in a kind of way.
It's
I
like
don't know if it's the
woo.
same when you're doing like a slow, like heartfelt solo. Like,
um, yeah, it is. When you're a fast guitar player,
mhm.
it is harder to slow things down.
Yeah.
But when you get to a certain level, you can do it interchange between the two like it's nothing. But when you first start trying to do it, you're like, oh, this is a change. It feels weird. But no, what I'm starting to do now is where you'll hear like bits on my album where it's like bits where it's just the guitar by itself,
Yeah.
and that's really like exposed in it. It's like you need to be perfect because if you're recording, I'm not saying that I put any dud guitar parts in the album, so don't go trying to find any. Uh, um, it's one of those things where you have to be spot on with the recording because it's just you and the click track,
Mhm.
and you're like, but when people hear it, it's going to be just that guitar part and then the slight build up from that. So it's literally like your guitar tone's like naked. It's like it's just by itself out in the open
Because I
in one of
suppose
those. In
if people don't know, like in music software these days, when you're recording, you can have a click track counting the beat for you, but that doesn't get put onto the recording. So then you obviously have like a clean track afterwards. So yeah, it's definitely interesting because when you're listening back, it's even different to when you recorded it because you obviously had
yeah.
all that distraction.
Mhm.
So recording's a very weird process where you just have to keep like trying and trying again, and sometimes get lucky and things just work
Yeah.
out. Um, so like if you had to give someone a quick like breakdown of like what would you need to get started with guitar today? We'll just say rock guitar for
With
easy
rock
sake.
guitar. Oh.
Like so like even I'm talking like even going down to like what would you need to like to buy? What would you like recommend for people to go out, pick up, and then like get going with it?
So which guitar?
Well, just like yeah, like a certain class of guitar, I suppose.
Well, it all depends on people's budgets because I know that
Yeah.
there's a lot of snobbery that goes on in the guitar world. I'm
Oh
not part of
yes,
it.
in the musicians world. Yeah.
Thankfully, I'm not part of it. But because I hate stuff like that, I shoot people down on comments all the time on Facebook when they're being snobs
Elitist.
about. Yeah, and it's usually the people who can afford the most gear, like the really expensive stuff, that can't play well at all.
Yeah.
So
There's
it's
there's
weird.
definitely a bit of like there's a few rich imposters in the music scenes.
Yeah, so I could play like the cheapest guitar and still play and sound better than they do with all their expensive gear.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it, believe it or not, I know people who play guitar might watch this. I don't know. Um,
Hopefully.
yeah, hopefully, a lot of it's in your hands, like finger tone.
Hmm.
I used to think it was this massive like lie when I was younger. I was like, no, it's got to be about the gear because look at what Eddie Van Halen's playing. I watched a video years ago of Joe Satriani playing a Squire Strat, which was like $100 or whatever,
Yeah.
into a little practice amp with a wah pedal, and he played along with Surfing with the Alien backing track, and he sounded exactly like the record. And that's when I went, oh, it's in your hands,
Yeah.
a lot of it. So I might sound a certain way on my Ibanez, but this Kramer behind us here, it's a different sound generally on the guitar because of the pickups and the wood and whatever.
Yeah.
But it's me still. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Is there anything you can do to learn that, or is that just an experience thing, do you think?
Mm,
I guess being aware of it is the first step. That's,
yeah, being being aware of it is the first step. And
is it like micro movements and how you're like holding the string? Is that kind of what it is?
um, it's one of those things where I think you just know when it's happening. You can feel
Ooh,
it.
it's magic,
It's
eh?
it's like it's the vibrations, man. But technically it is because the whole guitar is vibrating when you're
Oh yeah.
playing it, and um, it's certain ways that you move your fingers across the strings or the finger strength that you're using.
Mm.
Because obviously there's a lot of dynamics in the instrument, so like you can. Um, I don't hit the guitar the hardest out of
Mm.
everyone I know, but I do play with a certain like power as such. Like when I'm trying to get across certain dynamics, so you'll dig in harder or you'll
Hmm.
press the strings on the frets harder. So yeah, it's a feel thing. Unfortunately, it can't be taught.
Yeah, I
But
mean, because there's a lot of scope for like how you do the most simplest things on guitar. Like it's if you really get into it, it's a ridiculously complicated instrument. Like it might not seem it from like face value,
yeah,
but especially to do some of the sort of metal and like advanced rock stuff, there's a lot of like micro movements you have to do that people don't even realize. Because that's I've tried to learn a little bit of guitar, and that's what I found massively hard to wrap my head around. Was like, okay, now I need to put my palm over the strings for like two picks, and then I'm back up.
yeah,
It's like it's
yeah,
all these weird tiny movements that are like
yeah,
completely unnatural. So I guess what you're saying is there's like when you're just fretting like the notes, like how like the exact timing you do everything has an
yeah,
effect. Like you can't just
yeah,
like jam your hand into place
yeah.
like messily.
Well, you'll find when I'll have to pick the prop up again for
You
this.
can
You'll
do it,
find
yeah. Get as
when you
technical
like
as you want.
yeah, so like just like fretting chords, like
Yeah.
it's tiny movements, like, and it's like I don't feel them as much as other people would because of the calluses on my fingers at 26-year-old.
Yeah.
So like it doesn't hurt to bend strings or
Yeah,
they do stuff like that.
hit the sort of smaller strings that they're a bit more like wire.
Yeah, but I mean like stuff like that. I'm doing that and I can't. I know I'm doing it because I can hear it, but I don't feel it that much.
Yeah.
It's like it's bizarre feeling. I don't know whether it's just because of the way my brain works or what.
Possibly.
Um,
You
because
might just have the perfect brain for this.
maybe yeah. So I don't feel certain things. Mind, there's sometimes when I've been recording the solos for the new album or whatever, like when I've dug in like proper hard and I've actually felt it because I've like bent the
Yeah.
string like with such ferocity. I'm like, whoa, and then it's come across really well in the recording. So I'm like,
It was worth it.
yeah. And you know me, I'm such a perfectionist as well.
Yeah.
Like I'll play the perfect solo for the song, and I'll know that I missed a note that I wanted to put in, but nobody else would know. So I delete the whole solo and do it again.
Yeah. If you did it
And
once, you can do it again. Like
yeah,
that's
mine. There's been some where I've only just been able to do again because I've been that in the moment. It's just been totally improvised, and I'm like, what did I even play there? So I have to listen back to it like 3 or 4 times, and I'm like trying to play along with it, and I'm like, God, like because sometimes I just get in this weird zone where it's like totally zoned out, and I can hear what I'm playing, but
yeah.
I don't realize I'm doing it as such. It's weird.
Oh,
It's like
that's
a
pretty cool.
yeah.
Like
It's a
I absolutely hate recording because I think it's just the way my brain works. Like I rarely do something exactly the same every time. Like I think my brain enjoys like little random elements, which for recording is the exact opposite of what you want. So when I have to sit and record, then I get this layer of stress where I'm like, okay, I've got to lock down everything in this song. Has to now be like locked in place, and I have to do the same thing like whatever, like 100 times, because you play like the same beat over and over again. So like I feel like it kind of for me it like hampers me, and I get too in my own head. And there is a certain fatigue element that comes in with drums and guitar where you're too tired to play the thing at the same level as like your first take. So sometimes you do have to take a break and like come back to something. I suppose we kind of got a bit off topic here, but so you were saying guitar doesn't necessarily matter, but maybe push your budget to get something that at least feels comfortable.
Yeah, true, because some of the cheaper guitars,
they're like they're not a great shape for like sitting and playing.
Not a great shape, or like the frets are like quite spiky on the edges, and they'll cut you if you don't like try and work around it.
Yes, there's a reason they call it heavy metal. There's a lot of metal and a lot of heavy wood in those guitars.
Yeah, and a lot of those guitars as well, you can't get a decent action, like the string height. So like sometimes they're like at the maximum like low end, and it's still like this far off the fretboard, and you're like, because then the more you have to press down. Yes, it might help with your finger strength. Yeah, but nothing you play is going to be in tune or intonated.
Yeah, and it's just going to be harder, which. Like you say, you could harden yourself and like train through it, and then get a nicer guitar, and hopefully it'll like be easy.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people I knew started on acoustic, but I went straight for electric because I was like, grand bass guitars, no.
I think acoustic is hard. They're quite big for a child. My dad's was huge.
It's like they're big, but like thick bodies on them. And stuff. But like, I'd never started on an acoustic because I was like, everything I listened to was electric.
True.
Because I remember, obviously, the first albums I remember hearing in my dad's car was the Black Album by Metallica.
Yeah.
And 5150 by Van Halen.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's one of my favourite albums of all time.
I tell you what, like, in our generation, like, dads and granddads with cool CDs have done us right, done us musicians right.
And also another song I remember hearing, Ram Jam, Black Betty.
Yeah,
I remember hearing that, and I'm like, whoa, what is that?
That's pretty heavy. Like that start and everything. Like that's like people are obviously like, oh, it's that silly one, but like if you listen to the guitar at the start, like that's like they're pushing that for the time. It's so like crunchy as well, isn't it? Like how they got the sound.
Great guitar tone. Like the solos are great in it as well, like the little harmony bits.
Yeah,
great. And I remember hearing that, and so like I was like, I'm gonna go electric like all the way. And so guitar wise, I'd say if you're starting and you don't know whether you're gonna stay with it, get something cheap but not to the lowest point.
Yeah.
Get something that feels comfortable, and that's probably why I've went through so many guitars throughout the years, because I didn't know that I had sensory issues with obviously not knowing I was autistic until I was 27.
Oh yeah.
So certain feels on the back of the neck, I've been like, oh, why is that? Like feels so weird. Like if it's got a gloss neck on the back, I'm like, I've got to have a matte finish so it's like you don't slip about.
That's interesting.
And certain feels of the wood and stuff like that. But for normal people who are getting guitars, I'd say just go for whatever you can afford at the time.
Yeah.
And if it's not the best thing in the world, get better on the instrument, and then you can justify getting something a bit more expensive, because that's what I did.
Yeah, definitely. I think all of us started on a practice instrument before our
Yeah.
parents or whatever were like, okay, now you can have something medium range.
Well, yeah, that's what happened. That's when I got the white Epiphone Les Paul I got.
Yes, yes.
That was my first proper guitar.
That was like your signature guitar for a while.
That's the guitar I had the longest out of any. That was 13 years. That.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about it the other day because a picture came up on my phone, like memories of when I sold it,
Oh yeah, yeah, because you would have
and
been
I was
taking
like,
pictures of it.
yeah, and I was like, oh man, I wish I'd never sold that guitar. It was great. But anyway, I remember because it was me dad, because I was sitting playing along with like Metallica backing tracks and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and I remember I was playing Sanitarium on this
Excellent track.
crappy little Strat with me. What pedal was I using at the time? I think I had this Digitech
Oh yeah.
RP100 with the
With
2 foot switches.
yeah, I saw one of them at Trillions not like last week.
Yeah,
They're still
yeah,
around.
yeah. It was a great pedal, mine. I mean, some of the tones were awful, but if you got it right, I would sit for hours just tweaking with the tones. That's probably why I'm so good at the recording stuff now, because I was just like I spent hours and hours. But I was playing along with that, and my dad came in from work, and he was like, "Was that you playing that?" And I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Oh, cool." So I was like, "Why? What's he thinking?" Um, but the weekend after that, he was like, "Oh, well, we're going out shopping," and I was like, "Oh, shopping." Oh. We ended up in Newcastle, and I was like, "Why
Weird.
are we in Newcastle?" And I must have been about 14.
Yeah.
So I went 4 years with that crappy little Encore Strat, and he was like, "Oh, it went in the windows in Newcastle,"
Oh yeah.
and he was like, "I was obsessed with the darkness at the time."
I think we all
Um,
were.
yeah, and then it was like, "Well, what guitar do you want?" And I was like, "That one." So I saw it straight away because Justin Hawkins used the. Well, obviously his was a Gibson Les Paul
Yeah.
custom, but this was the closest thing I could get within like a certain price range.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, I was trying that out, playing like loads of like darkness riffs and stuff like that in the guitar shop, and I was like, "Ah, this is the one for me." And I got a Marshall amp as well because I knew Justin
Nice.
Hawkins used Marshalls.
Yes, they do
Um,
have a budget range. If people don't know, it's not just the rock stars who can afford
yeah, I
Marshalls.
got I got the I think it was the 100 watt DFX, I think they were called. Like it was like the had loads of effect, like reverb and chorus and
Oh,
stuff on
built in.
the
Yeah.
yeah, and that was great. I had that for years as well. So yeah, that was my first proper little guitar setup. I played loads of gigs with that setup, especially for like college.
Yeah. That was the
Um,
thing in college actually. You knew how to work an amp for better lack of a term because that is in itself is its own separate machine really, isn't it? It's like an amp.
yeah,
Um some people just had no idea what to do, and neither did I because drums don't have amplifiers. So I was fine. I got off easy.
yeah,
But you had to work with loaner amps just stuck in practice rooms that people had kicked to bits on that.
yeah. But I would still always get a good tone out of it because I didn't
Yeah.
realize that. Well, I said earlier that most of your tones in your fingers because I remember using them Fender Hot Rod Deluxes in
Yeah.
mine. They're expensive amps, by the way. I didn't realize.
But yeah,
Nah.
anything you leave in a school or college is just going to degrade.
I mean, I spoke to Gary Dunn about it, and he says they were about 700-800 quid at the time
Wow.
each, and now they're a grand, like grand or over.
Yeah, if you've like kept one. Nice.
Yeah, and I remember being able to get like a proper like melt your face like riff and shred tone out of that, and everyone else is going like, "I just sound like bang 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 bang."
Yeah, it
Like,
did, didn't it? Like
aye,
they would have like all one side of the frequency, like it would just be all like high end noises.
yeah, and there's me getting like a perfect like Zach Wild tone out of an amp that shouldn't be able to do it, and I'm like, how's everyone else like not being able to do this? And I think it's because I took the time to sit down with like amps and dial in tones. Like
Yeah. And
go and
then,
like listen to a record. I remember listening to Ozzy's No More Tears record.
Mhm.
Like, it was that wild, like at his prime. Like, sitting with me Marshall and sitting with my guitar and then listening to that and then like playing a bit and then like dialing in exactly what I heard on the record. So it was like I started with all the like tweaking and stuff like very early on when I was like 15, like 14, 15, stuff like that.
yeah, so like that's where the little the hints of perfectionism have just helped you by like sort of not that you were aware that you were
Oh,
learning so much.
no. I just
You're
thought,
probably just getting pissed off. You're like, why don't I sound like this?
yeah. And then obviously after the Metallica thing, I went down the Zakk Wylde rabbit hole.
To get some
Of
more blues influence.
yeah, like shred blues. That's what it was like.
Yeah.
Just like playing the blues, but times 100 speed.
Oh yeah.
Um,
And a
and I
lot
got that
more
down.
overdriven than you would normally think.
Yeah, and I remember that's when I started getting obsessed with pinch harmonics and stuff like that.
Hey, there's people out there who would kill to be able to do pinchies.
Yeah, and luckily I can do them as good as anyone, I think, anyway. Because I sat and listened to like Zakk Wylde playing, like pausing
Yeah.
and
What's he
trying
doing?
it. Yeah. So I remember the first time I did it because like you'll be able to see with the pick here. I mean, I've got like a luminous green pick.
Don't worry, it's not chroma keyed.
So this is a string, right?
Yes.
So you've got to try and get your the fleshy bit of your thumb to hit the string at the same time as the tip of the pick.
Oh yeah.
So if you just held it like this and just hit it, it would just be a burnt normal note. But if you do that and dig in like this, like so, if you're playing like that, dig up like that, and get a bit of vibrato on it, it does that like where you like
Yeah, because it knocks the vibration to be like different, doesn't it? It's a really weird technique.
And depending, so it's hard to do this.
Yeah.
I'll get the prop. So depending on where above the pickup
Oh yes.
towards the neck you get a different tone. So it's like a different note of the harmonic.
And isn't it you have to like for each string and fret there's like a sweet spot for it that you've got to kind of learn.
Well, especially with the dime bag harmonics, you know, like Pantera.
Yeah.
You've got there's different harmonics in the space of the same fret.
Yeah.
So like if you hit one there, you know, like Cemetery Gates, where it's like the whistle sound. If you hit it in the center of that fret, it's a different note, and if you hit it towards the second fret, it's a different note again.
Yeah.
So, but there's natural harmonics all the way down the fretboard, like say second, third, fourth, fifth, seventh, ninth, 12th, 14th, 17th, 19th, and 24th.
Nice.
So yeah, there's like and it definitely helps knowing which one going to sound good for what you're playing. And I think I've played long enough now that I know if I'm doing like a crazy shred solo in like E minor or whatever, I know I'm going to dupe the bar and hit that third fret one.
Yeah.
And pull it back a certain part. So there's just like little things you learn from like listening and playing. I know that was total foreign language there, like just get dupe the bar and that.
No, I said get as technical as you want.
It's actually called scooping and duping.
Yeah.
It's weird because I noticed that when I was looking at a Pantera tab in Total Guitar, and it said like scoop the bar, then dupe the bar, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, scoop and dupe.
Yeah, so by the time we met in college, like properly, that was like when I was in the zone of getting towards being like shred machine. Like so after like 6 years of playing.
Mm-hmm.
And Gary Dunn, I remember our lecturer was like, "You've only been playing how long?" Like, I remember me and him had the guitar battle. Can you remember?
Yeah, like a solo off.
I beat him.
Yeah, he shrank 3 sizes that day.
Yeah, but then
no, he was a good sport about it.
he was because he could actually shred loads. Like I didn't realize. That's what happens when you're a session player, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just one of those. He probably didn't have to flex that muscle because no one had came through the college who was interested.
But I remember the next time we did it, he absolutely wiped the floor with us.
Yeah, because I think I remember he went away and learned some more tricks, didn't he?
Yeah, he learned loads of like Randy Rhodes licks and stuff like that, and I was like, oh mate. But yeah, I always had like a massive like respect for him because like I think you're right. I think he was used to people just being like singer-songwriters coming through, and then there was this guy like me who could like melt your face.
Yeah,
and he was just like, oh, like,
and then
I awoken something in him that he hadn't felt since the 80s, probably.
And then me and you, the weirdos who liked hard, hard metal and weird metal. Then we kind of just like, it probably was a bit of a breath of fresh air for the lecturers. Hopefully we didn't just annoy the piss out of them.
Yeah, well, I remember when you had to do like a show and tell with your song.
Yeah,
you did Decapitated.
Oh yeah.
And Gary Dunn,
he took that CD home to make a copy of it. Yep.
He said that's the best metal guitar tone I think I've ever heard.
It was crisp as fuck. Like.
It was. It was like, I'd love to know what you're probably using some variation of a PV50 150 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I remember that's the first time I heard Arch Enemy because of you as well.
I'm good at that.
Taking Back My Soul. Yeah. I remember
because that one is a bit like if you, how could we say this, like if you put a Metallica song back through the Metallica machine like twice, it would like evolve into an Arch Enemy song.
It's
absolutely. Just everything's on like a blast, like, you know, drums are faster, guitars are louder, and like twice as many solos, but the melody's still there, like from that kind of like old school sort of metal, the real good.
So like I remember that as well, that hearing that song started another whole new tone quest for me as well. I was like,
zone.
The tone zone. I was like, I need to sound like that.
Yeah. You're there now. It has taken a while though.
It has, because I'm so picky with what gear I use. Like, I mean, I don't even own an amp.
I think it took a while for the affordable tech to catch up as well, because like you say, the big bands have got like, you know, the whatever amp they feel like having. Doesn't have to be top of the range. It might just be like their favorite, and then they've got someone to sit in the studio and tweak everything till it's perfect. But I think like now we're in a good spot where like the home recording stuff is like catching up in an affordable way, where you might only need to spend about like a few £100 to have some software that'll really like jump you up to the next level. Yeah,
true. I mean, the thing you need, I know this is probably a different topic now, but
we can go on to like home recording, because like you really sort of made strides in that, like in the last sort of like, I mean, I know we've had recording software since college days, but I feel like maybe in the last 5 or so years you've kind of like jumped up in the knowledge base on that front as well. So yeah, sorry, what were you saying that you need?
A decent audio interface.
Yes, I've got one I've had since the college/uni days. It's still doing me well.
That's recorded some weird stuff from us, hasn't it?
Yes. It's had many of your guitars and pedals plugged into it, and different microphones that I've had.
Many microphone mumblings from us when we were doing in the Skronk days.
Oh yes, I don't think I've told the Nerdy Up North crowd about the Skronk days, but it's all out there.
They were the best. They were the best days. Well, basically comedy metal.
We did, yeah, and we've made our own music videos sometimes.
Yeah,
that was actually for a uni presentation.
yeah, it was funny. That was at John Borrable's House of Lard.
It was. Think of what I could do with the green screen now. What we could do.
Jake, I think this means we might have to bring Skronk back.
Yeah, but as some kind of weird live show.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then what was it, Hobo Joe? That's one of my favourite tracks. That.
Yes.
Especially with the the recordings we did of the ambience in the
We did it.
background.
Yeah, we attempted a soundscape. So yeah, I did learn some stuff at university.
Yeah.
It wasn't just me fighting against the university learning style the whole time.
Yeah. So, in regards to audio interface,
yes, audio interface, if anyone doesn't know, is a piece of hardware that you can plug microphones, guitars into the computer. It's like the bridge that bridges the instruments in the computer.
yeah, so people might think you have to have like an amp in the room you're using or whatever, but no, like I literally plug my guitar straight into the front end of my audio interface.
We can't grab it, by the way, sorry, because it would just root. it would pull all the wires.
Yeah, I don't have the box for it anymore, I don't think.
They're sometimes called DAWs if you Google it out there.
Yeah, so sometimes when you buy an audio interface for a certain price, say like anything for like £100 or whatever, you usually get a free software with it.
Yeah.
Which gives you like a lifetime license. But there's also free software out there like Reaper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, they do suggest that you pay the license fee after the 60 days, but you don't have to.
Yeah,
it's a suggestion. I've had Reaper. I mean, I know I use Cubase more now, but when I started using Reaper like just before the pandemic, it said that I've been using Reaper for 600 days without paying for the license. It doesn't require that you do it. I know, like
it's open source. I think it's like OBS, which is another software we use, where somebody basically created it to fill a gap to kind of help people get on the ladder in that kind of way, not have like a money barrier to entry. Yeah. So it goes without saying, without generous people and smart people like that who build these softwares, a lot of us wouldn't be doing anything we'd have to just pay, and that's not a good situation either. So,
as well, obviously you need some sort of PC or laptop.
Yeah, that's where it can hamstring you, where it's like, oh, the PC can't quite handle this, so you might have to dial some of your software needs back and try and go more hardware, because you can do a balance. Like Adam was saying, you can just plug your guitar in, but you could also plug your guitar into your amp into the interface and then use your amp sound. So there's definitely like a good amount of DIY you can get away with, like with a lower spec PC, but having plenty of RAM, like a gaming PC, definitely helps smooth out the edges.
Or, as well, if you like want to use a bit of hardware, like something like this, you can plug your guitar into this.
Yeah.
The pedal board. And that goes straight into the audio interface, and then it uses up less processing power.
Yep, because the pedal's doing a lot of the sound conversion.
Yeah. So whenever I do start doing the streams and stuff, well, I need to do it because it's just I'm annoying myself now.
It'll be fun.
But I'll use this because then I can change presets. So, like, say I wanted a clean acoustic tone, that'll be on number 1, and then a bit of a driven tone, then a riffy, like sort of chunky tone, and then solo, and then I've got a wah pedal. Then I've got a wah pedal as well.
Oh yeah.
So that'll work really well for the streams. So I've done tests recently with this pedal, and it works really well. Like the tone comes across really good. And,
that's actually why I've been skewing towards like real hardware lately, because like I've been playing on the Super Nintendo Mini through a capture card so that my PC's not actually playing a game while I'm sort of streaming. So it's definitely like the same with music and kind of this kind of live streamy stuff. It's like a push and pull between your like hardware and your software. And knowing what to offload and what not to. It's just a bit of an improvising balance type of thing. I wouldn't. If anyone's having trouble, just stick at it and you'll find something that settles down and works.
Yeah, I mean, it's took me a long time to like understand all the technical side of
Hmm.
it, because I'm the talent, you know. I need it. Like, I should. The way I saw it was like I should just be able to play and like
Yeah.
not to worry about stuff like this. But with the modern times that we're in now, like this is how you get yourself across.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well,
um,
yeah, like, did you want to? I was gonna mention because you do song commissions, which for
mhm,
people who don't know is where you commission Adam to make something for you, and he'll make it like to your specifications. It might just be a cover, or like for the Nerdy Up North, you've done like bespoke theme songs and stuff. I mean, this video is introed by one of your album songs,
mhm,
and I use your music as like because I've like said like, can I use this? Then we don't have to
mhm,
worry about copyrights and stuff, which
yeah,
is great. So other people can pay you to do that.
yes, they
Hint,
can.
hint.
Please do.
if
Anyone
you
else
make
that's
if
got
you're
something?
making a project and so
Yeah.
like you work like really fast. Like, is there anything that goes into your process that you think that you're good at, or like how would it work if someone just suggested like, oh, can I have a cover of the X-Files theme, shall we say? Like, how would you sort of go about starting that?
Um.
I don't mean like technically wise, but like, what are the kind of like steps you go through, like to kind of get going?
Well, what I usually do if someone wants a cover of something, I'll start just by listening to the track, or if I
Yeah,
know the track well enough, I don't need to.
yeah,
So, um, it's about an hour or so of just listening along with the track, and then making the melody on guitar while I'm listening to it,
oh
and then
yeah,
I'll start to hear other bits come in, like the drums should sound like this, even though there's probably not drums in that cover, but like
yeah,
obviously, or like a rhythm guitar should sound like this and this sort of tone. It all goes like down this weird like perfectionist funnel, and then gets filtered out at the end of like. And I don't do demos like other people do when I record.
hmm,
What I give you is what I heard going in.
yeah,
Because one of my favorite guitarists, Andy James, where you know how much I was obsessed with him,
hmm,
um, he gave us some advice personally. Obviously, I was speaking to him on Instagram and stuff like that, because I used to do covers of his songs, and he like started liking them and sharing them and stuff like
oh
that.
amazing,
Yeah, and he said you get in what you get out what you put in. So if you put shit in, you get shit out.
yeah,
So just make sure that that source recording is the best it can possibly be. So what I do is because I've already got templates set up in my DAW where it's already got the guitar tones I like to use a lot sitting
yeah,
ready. So once I plug my guitar in and switch that on, it's all there. Like I don't have to go like, oh, I'll have to tweak that or whatever. Like I've got literally like about 10 different guitar tracks with the tones set on it.
hmm,
So if I'm like, oh, I want to sound like that today, I just open that channel up and it's there.
yeah. So you've done a lot of prep work just to like get that out of the way of your process. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really smart idea.
And I've got two separate drum um, softwares set
Hmm.
up at the same time. So if I want a more like 80s sort of like reverberated sound, um, which I used on my album,
Yeah, yeah.
um, I'll have Superior Drummer open. Or if I want the more like brutal modern metal sort of sound, I'll have Get Good Drums open.
Yeah, it's
So
like drum software's like dead interesting these days because like a lot of it's like drag and drop. So if that's stopping anybody out there who might be listening from like putting a track together, like you can like buy these programs and you'll be able to listen to the beats and then be like, okay, I'll pick this part, and then you can just like keep copying it, or you can
yeah,
drop fills in between, and
yeah,
it has them nicely linked up so that it actually like fills into the next like beat like on the
mhm,
beat. And I think like that's an amazing thing. Like I'm sure a lot of drummers are angry about that in a kind of like it's taking our jobs kind of way, but like
yeah.
honestly,
Take
like
your
anything
jobs.
anything that takes the barriers away for
Yeah.
guitarists and singers, even like because you
Mm.
could make an all digital track and if you wanted to sing, you've got everything there. Like you might have to do a bit of work to make like the melodies yourself, but you don't need a band anymore, which is like cool in some ways. But then other ways, like a full acoustic band also has its own sound, which is nice.
Yeah. I mean, I've got the bass guitar, but I don't need one anymore.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because you've got that program that turns like your guitar line into bass almost.
Yeah. So I mean, you've seen the bass, haven't you? But the other people haven't, because I've never used it on thing. Well, look at that.
Oh yeah.
That's
I've kind of got one of them.
I mean, the yellow looks different on camera, but this is like proper like bright yellow. I mean, it's probably like painful to look at. It looks like. Do you know when kids get amoxicillin antibiotics?
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. It's like luminous yellow.
Looks delicious.
Delicious, yeah. That banana flavoured medicine. But no, like, so what I do is I play a riff, and then you just drag the recorded riff into Easy Bass, it's called.
Yeah.
And then it creates a MIDI version, and it turns it into bass audio.
Yeah. Do you find that needs like any tweaking, or is it pretty much good to go? Like once it's done its thing?
The only time it runs into any problems is when I had this 7-string tune to Spirit Box tune in the F sharp.
Because you're like, it's already playing a bass. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's like, well, that's already a bass. What is it? No, like the lowest that program goes until I would buy the upgrade where you can get lower, which I'm not doing at the moment. It goes to the lowest note it goes to is like a G0.
Yeah.
Which will be like a low G on the 7th string, which is heavy, like it's proper heavy. But yeah, so everything I did on the album was either B standard or drop A.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't too low, so it would track it really nicely. It would work really well.
That's awesome, because anything that just saves you the time of having to play something again on a different instrument. And like you can sometimes lose your flow, can't you, when you like switching about and stuff? Because it's like, oh, now I've got to play the riff in a weird simplified version for bass.
no simple. Well, you're saying I'm talking about workflow. This sounds like another like big up to myself, but I don't know anyone else personally, or even in the real music world, that can put a full produced album out in less than 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, you could, if you were allowed to just sit there and do it, you could probably do it much faster.
Yeah, I mean, I had everyday life stuff to do as well.
Exactly.
And this was before I was off on the sick for a bit, so it was like I was literally working nearly every day. Had the kids, so I was literally just on a night time or on the daytime before work. So yeah, I think all in all, if I had the time off or whatever and didn't have the other things of life to deal with, I probably would have had it done in about 2 weeks.
Yeah. But like that's yeah, I mean this does sound like the plug hour, but like when I ask you for a track, like people might think like, oh yeah, you commission an artist and it takes them like, a couple of weeks. Like it's more like the next day when I'll get the track back in like you say, a mostly finished state. Like like I might want some tweaks here and there, but like you'll put something out within like probably a few hours. Really, it only takes you a day because, like you say, you've got to go to work or something.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when you asked us to do the what was it, the Command and Conquer one?
Yeah.
I think that was literally like you asked us like on the evening, and then the next dinner time it was yours.
I think you had a version in the morning because I'd obviously woke up to like a version in the text box. But yeah, like you've done like Castlevania, like Elden Ring and stuff, and like is is it hard to, like, has there been any that have like posed a challenge to you, or is it just a like, have you got enough listening skills to like eventually just get through it, even if it is like an orchestra track that you're turning into a guitar track and stuff like that?
I think the most challenging
Because I would have thought
that,
Elden Ring would have been like a bitch, but you kind of you knocked that out pretty quick as well.
that was the easiest one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I already knew what key it was in, because I have something that's called relative pitch.
Yeah.
It's not perfect pitch. It's the one down from that. So
okay.
I hear the first note of a song, say there's like a riff comes in like "Dah," like that. I'll be able to tell you what key that song's in, like instantly. Like say that's a low B on a 7-string, or that guitar's tuned to drop B and it's a 6-string. So stuff like that, I know instantly. So I knew that the Elden Ring theme was, I'm sure it was B flat.
Yeah.
Because I know I had my guitar tuned differently, because that's when I had the headless guitar.
Oh, all right, yeah.
And I had it tuned like in a weird drop tuning, and I was like, oh. Yes, it is B flat, because I redid it with the 7-string.
You did, yes.
Tuned down half a step, yeah, so it's definitely B flat. So yeah, it's just stuff like that, like where I'll say when Goodwill wanted us to do the Star Trek theme.
Yep.
I was like, that's in F sharp. It's like it's funny. It's
so that gives you like a kickstart where you're like, okay, like I can work with this.
Yeah, because I remember years ago where I was still like learning and stuff. I'll be like, oh, what notes that start with? But now it's like, I can just play the. If you get the first couple of notes or a couple of chords, you'll be able to learn a song quicker than you think.
Yeah, because like that is something about how songs are written. There's a bit of a notes go well together and people use them like subconsciously. So like a lot of songs can be sort of like, how many riffs is there on like you know, like what is it, like 1-3-5 like frets wise and stuff like that.
Yeah, or like 1-3-4.
Yeah,
0.
you know it when you play it. When you play those power chords, you're like, this feels good. And like that's what all the musicians before you have also had that feeling.
Add some little palm mute in between. Like, it sounds great, especially in drop C tuning. I recommend it to anyone who's playing guitar, if you can.
Yeah,
use drop C.
It is fun when you discover drop D for the first time.
Even drop D is a lot heavier than you think as well. Like Lamb of God, for example.
Yeah, got by on that mostly.
Yeah, either that or down half a step. So if you're American or English, it's either drop D flat or drop C sharp.
Oh, I didn't know we had dissenters in if you're rounding up or rounding down.
Mm-hmm. Certain tuners on different like plugins and stuff will have it the English way,
right,
or the American way.
So when you first click it on, you're like, oh, okay, we'll go with this.
Well, luckily I know what the note is still, because I'm like, well, D flattened would be C sharp.
That's so the big trick about music.
Yeah,
a bunch of the notes are named the same thing.
Yeah, but yeah, can't even. I just totally brain farted there.
No, you're fine. I think I was just asking you sort of like, I was just asking you how your brain works through a commission. But I think you've answered it.
Goes a million miles an hour. It's like,
yeah. Do you find that you like that as a kind of challenge where you're like, okay, I've got a goal, and then your brain just like, yeah.
I don't like pressure in any other part of my life,
apart
from when I'm doing music stuff.
Yeah, because I suppose if you don't have like an end game, you'll probably just meander about and sort of like, and it like stalls the process if you don't think like, I would like to finish a track today, like a sort of thing. But yeah, one thing I just randomly thought of, like, kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, like tips for people. Like this probably is hard nowadays than when we were growing up, but like playing together, like with sort of like-minded people,
Yeah.
will massively like skyrocket your like technique levels, even without you knowing,
Yeah.
because obviously there's loads you can learn on your own with your instrument. You know, you can sit down and you can become like one of the best drummers in the entire world on your own. But when you get to play with other people, you then start picking up so almost like musical social cues, and you'll see what other people are doing, and obviously like get a jump ahead technique wise. But like playing in a band or along to a rhythm that's either a computer rhythm or another person is its own skill. That's almost separate from your instrument, really. And we had the luxury and the time to like develop that together, which I think massively like helped us both in a lot of ways.
Yeah. People have always said that me and you had this like telepathic like abilities when we were playing in bands together.
Yeah.
Like we would know when the other person was going to like do a stop or like a stab, like a like a sort of, and it would always be like perfectly synchronized, and it's like, oh, well, I don't know how it happened. I don't know, we just got the same sort of musical brain or whatever.
Yeah, it probably is that where we both have like similar ideas of what sounds good, because that's its whole other thing.
Yeah.
Of like, I mean, there's probably science behind it, but that's why some people, like two people can listen to the same song and one can hate it and one can love it. It's like, just like everyone's got an inbuilt, like, this is good to me. Having said that, there's some science behind like what is a well-written song. And I genuinely believe that there are some, like, not all songs are created equally. there are some songwriters are just bad.
Yeah, definitely. But then it still gets critically acclaimed and
can do, yeah. There's a lot of weird factors, but I feel like I can always tell when like a good songwriter like rises up, and I'm like, okay, this feels right. this success feels right. It's so weird. Good. I don't know if there is like studies, but it's such an interesting, like, music is like endlessly interesting when you start like going through the layers.
Yeah, it is. It's just a never ending like quest to find out what's the best thing, but it's all subjective. Well, apparently. But I feel like I'm more qualified to say I know what a good song is, like than some people. But then you still end up. I've stopped it now. I used to be so like metal elitist.
Yeah.
When I was younger, and now I can listen to a pop song and go like, that sounds really good.
Yeah,
like, the chords and like the sequences in it are like all like sort of something I would do in like a metal song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like they've definitely got a good songwriter who's writing that, because let's be honest, a lot of the pop artists today don't write their own songs.
Yeah, or even the massive ones, it'll still work with somebody like as a songwriter. So like I think like anyone really, like Lady Gaga, for example, like has done a lot of work behind the scenes helping other people write songs, and then obviously has her own like partners. And I think it goes back to what we were just saying, where like some kind of group element or like a duo like is best. Like you can bring out stuff, because like you can never like notice everything yourself. Like there's only so much you can sort of fit in your brain, and you just never know what like new ideas someone else is gonna like unlock in you just by being like hearing them play something.
Yeah, true. Because like it used to happen a lot when we were in the band. I would play like a riff, and then Matty would go, "Oh no, it needs to go here."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's a good point." So then we'll try that, and it sounds great. And it's like just all it needed was some fresh ears on it, because you've been trying the same thing over and over again. And it's like, but when I'm doing my own albums, I use you as the sort of the guinea pig, so to speak. I'll send you like the recorded version of it, and you're like, "Oh, that's really good." And I know you would tell me if something needed changing. So that's how I knew this album was good.
Yeah.
Because you never told me once that something needed
notes.
changing. No notes. It was just all like, wow.
Yeah, like I wouldn't want to like change like your vision, but if there was anything that it's hard to describe, but quote sounded off,
Yeah,
it would probably only be like a rhythm or timing thing because I wouldn't
yeah.
be able to advise you on notes or anything.
No, but I think that's why I'm really proud of this the album I last put out, because it was like an amalgamation. That's a
Mhm.
good word
Yeah.
of all like the previous things that I'd tried and didn't work. So
Yeah.
it's literally like they've all been put in the right place now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd have
Which
tried
like
like
which I
certain bits.
know it must be hard for you as a self-professed perfectionist. But
To
like,
admit you're wrong.
well, not wrong, but like that you were learning and like
Yeah,
you've put out stuff. But like if you hadn't put that stuff out, like you might not be here because you might not have like thought about it, like sat and thought about it afterwards and then improved
yeah.
again. It's like
I mean,
I've said this, I think I've said this nearly every kind of this video series we've done. Like it's all like building blocks. Like nobody comes out of the gates like fully formed on any kind of like project. If you do, they've generally sat behind the scenes and done this work like away
yeah,
and then came
yeah.
out to the gate, or had
Best
like,
way to
yeah.
best way to do it with anything, and this is like advice I need to take for myself now, is just do the thing,
Yeah.
and then you'll work out what's wrong with it when someone tells you.
Yeah, or when you watch it back, like, or listen
Yeah,
back, because
yeah,
that's a thing that not everyone on Nerdy Up North does, like watches and listens back to like the streams that they're on. I do from time to time, not every single thing, but I notice things like in the second We Need to Talk video, I said like about 100 times because I guess I was a bit nervous. So this
yeah.
video I've been trying consciously not to be like.
Like.
So like
Well,
everyone can work on stuff. And I think if you don't watch things back, you'll probably never know, which is
yeah,
bad.
true. I mean, it can all like stem to stuff when we're talking about like how I gigged and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
I remember. Well, you remember when I got the job with Arj off The Only Way Is Essex.
Oh yes, start name dropping. It's time.
It's time. It's so long into the video.
Yep.
Best
Yeah.
no, but yeah, it's like that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That was and I was so scared. It was like I was working at the time, and Tim, who I'd done stuff at uni with, like I went to uni with his sister, but he's like a musical director. He's like fantastic keys player
Yeah.
and singer as well. And he rang me while I was at work. I had like run outside at work, so it was when I was working in the kitchen. And he was like, "Oh, do you know who Arj is off Towie?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh, he needs a guitarist for a gig. Are you up for it?" And I was like, "Yes." And he was like, "Right, he'll ring you tonight at about 10 o'clock." So I was like, "Oh, whatever, man." Like, of course. I was like, "Right, oh, okay." So
he'll forget or something. Yeah.
yeah. So I get home after work. I finished work at 9 that night, and I got home, and Hannah and her friend Rosie were here, and I was like, "Oh, I'm supposed to be getting a phone call at 10 o'clock," and Hannah was like, "Off who?" And I was like, "Arj," and she was like, "Off Towie," and I was like, "Yeah," and she was like, "All right," she was like, "Okay," and funny enough, 10 o'clock drops. I get a phone call, and it's this lad from Essex on the other end of the line. And I was like, "Hello," and he was like, "Is that Adam?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Oh, I've heard like you're really good, like excellent guitar player. Like you sound exactly what I want for me shows and stuff." Because like I know it's like a sort of mellow, like doing like funky soul stuff, but he said there's always a massive solo section that you'll get to play or whatever. And I'm like, "All right, okay." He says, "I've seen videos because Tim showed us." He says like, "It sounds perfect," and he was like, "Oh, do you have a passport?" And I was like, "Yes," and he was like, "Right, in May we're going to Malaga
Oh
to
yeah,
play a
I've
gig,"
been.
and I was like,
It's nice though.
so it's like the Marbella bit,
Yeah,
and I was like, "Pardon?" And he was like, "Yeah, my friend owns a club over there, and it's massive. There's like loads of like celebrities and stuff go, and I was like, okay, fair enough. But the gig I played before that was like even better. It was crazy. It was the one for Paddy McGuinness.
Oh yeah, was it like
Uh,
a birthday night or charity night or
no,
something?
it was a charity night
Yeah.
because Paddy McGuinness's kids, and now turns out his ex-wife, because they've split up now.
Oh, all the
Um,
gossip's coming out.
yeah, they're autistic,
Hmm.
and they did like an autism charity in the Hilton in Manchester. So me and the drummer lad drove down and gets there, and it's just Paddy McGuinness watching us sound check, and he didn't know I was autistic at that moment in time,
Oh yeah.
and we're waiting about, and I was like beforehand, and Arj was like, "What's the matter?" And I was like, "This means a lot more to us than you know, because I'm actually autistic as well." And he was like, "Oh, okay." What I didn't know he was going to do was mention it halfway through the gig
Oh god.
in front of 2,000 people.
Who were there for an autism charity night?
Yep, yep. So everyone started cheering and everything. And next thing I know, Paddy McGuinness has jumped up on stage and like he's given us a hug. And I was like, okay. So I felt so much better for that, but I didn't know that he was going to do it. You know what I need everything to happen in its place.
Yeah.
And I was already like a few beers deep. And I was like, oh shit. So Paddy McGuinness is like pissed out of his skull and jumps up on stage, and he gives us a hug and like a kiss, and he's like, whoa, like shouting through the microphone for us and stuff like that. And it was great. And like I remember just like I met Rick Astley as well.
Wow.
Yeah, this was before we'd even played.
Yeah.
He just supported Take That at the Manchester Arena.
Yeah.
Nobody knew he was coming apart from obviously Paddy McGuinness. And so we get this knock on our dressing room door, and we're all eating our free meal, you know, like really nice, like fancy.
Getting your money's worth, you know.
And we're like, come in. And there's just Rick Astley just walks in. And I was like, and obviously me being me, like, I'm always going to be the most awkward person in the room, and it's going to be funny. I was like, your song was number one when I was born. And he was like, all right, man. All right. So he
he's
sat
got
there
he's
next
got
to
he's got a deeper voice than you'd think, hasn't he?
Yeah. And he's a lot shorter than I thought he would be. He looks
okay.
tall on the music videos.
Yeah.
But obviously me being a giant, like,
Yeah.
speaking to me,
he had a good tailor for those videos. give him some extra.
It makes his legs look nice and long. But speaking of giants, the bass player we had playing for the band was 6'9".
Oh no! You met your
so
unmovable object.
so it's like, oh, yeah. But it like all lovely lads as well. Like the whole band was tall apart from the drummer. Everyone was like 6'4" plus apart. I think ours is like 6'2", 6'3". But then it's funny on the photo. There's like all like similar heights, and then there's Steve, the bass player, who's like half a head above everyone.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's Andrew, the drummer. He's like down here. It's like, but no, like, and then speaking to Rick Astley, and then meeting like Freddie Flintoff and like Keith Lemon.
Oh yeah, was he being Keith or was he being Francis?
He was being Keith. It was hilarious. Like, and then. Oh, it was just crazy time. I was like, and then doing stuff like that. So I mean, just doing it. Like, if it was me beforehand,
yeah,
like years before, I would have been like, oh no, I'm not prepared enough for that.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would go to the gigs without practicing to see how well I would do on the gig.
Yeah.
So
which at your level, you can get away with that.
Yeah, like you've got an amount of musical knowledge. Like, we used to play Superstitious by Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
And that is in E flat. We were tuned to E standard.
Okay.
So you had to move it up, like down one fret.
Yeah, and just keep that
So
in your mind the whole time.
yeah, so there'll be certain players who played for him before. I think they must have made mistakes with stuff like that because he was mentioning like
Mm.
how well I did with just like transposing it, like literally like instantly. Because my brain was like, oh, we're gonna do this in the sound check, and I was like, oh, that's in E flat, just straight away.
And we played that a bunch in college, didn't we? So
Yeah,
you were
and
prepared for that one.
we used to play quite a lot of Stevie Wonder stuff, and like Sir
Yeah.
Duke we did as well. But what was good is we had a full like unison section of like the guitar playing the intro riff, the bass playing it, and
Mm.
then the sax player playing it as well.
Yeah. Or
So
keyboard without
yeah,
wonderful lecturer Tony.
yeah, it sounded phenomenal. Like, and then just do the things before you think that you can't do it. Because if you keep telling yourself you can't do it, you'll just never do it.
Yeah, you got to have that thing inside you
In the
where
Twitch streaming.
like you've got to have a thing where your brain can tell you've practiced enough
Yeah,
and like like okay, now I need to go out of the comfort zone and do something. And then
yeah,
you can come back to the safe practice zone like
yeah.
afterwards.
I think that's probably why I haven't done the Twitch stream stuff because I'm scared of it just going wrong. But I
Yeah.
think uh, I need to do it because I've got everything set up ready. All I need to do is just press stream.
Yeah.
Like that's it. I'll tell people. My problem is promoting.
Oh yeah. It's one of those things like I'm not good at it. Goodwill's good at it, which
Yeah,
by proxy trickles down to me. So thank you very much, Goodwill. Thank you very much appreciated.
yep.
Because
And
I find it hard to sort of think that it's worth watching me type of thing.
yeah, yeah,
So I kind of try and like bat it away and be like, I'm making the kind of streams that I want to watch. Like secretly, I want people to watch.
yeah.
But my fallback in my own brain is I would watch this, therefore I'm happy making it whether people watch or not.
Well, yeah, that is a very good point because that last album I did, I wrote it for me.
Yeah, and me.
And you, yeah, because you heard everything. But you had the whole album before anyone even else heard it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's like I know there's a certain point where you do have to do stuff for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's hard getting a balance. So that's why with this one, I just went. I know other people will enjoy it, but I mainly did it for myself.
Yeah, and I think like having that confidence is good where you can be like, I know what's good and I want to show it to other people. So you kind of stop trying to do what people expect
Yeah.
and just be like, hang on, I've got this like idea, like bear with me. and it'll be cool when we're finished.
Well, yeah, I think that's the difference I made with this new one. It was like writing the songs as if there was vocals there.
Yeah, that's really cool because if we haven't really mentioned it, but your most recent release is all instrumental, but the guitar plays the part a vocal would, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
To people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the lead guitar is basically the vocals.
Yeah, and you have like those choruses that you come back to
Yeah.
and stuff. Like it's immediately translatable if someone's like willing to listen to instrumental. It's not just like background music, like far from it.
Yeah, it's in your face music, definitely. But
Yeah.
it's not. It's. I think it's the most melodic thing I've ever done, and like, I feel like it's something that anyone can enjoy because like literally, like Alice, me daughter,
Mm-hmm.
she was showing her friends it the other week
Yeah.
on their like video call.
Uh,
And it was crazy, and they were like, "That's him playing," and they're like our little 12-year-old mates, and like,
you're like,
because
leave me alone.
yeah, Alice is like, and as she likes following the trends and stuff, and she likes our bit of pop and stuff, but behind closed doors,
Yeah.
she's a proper little metalhead. Like it's great. Because we're going to see Bring Me the Horizon and
Nice.
Bad Omens in January, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be my first like going to see a gig since December 2019.
Oh.
and that was Alter Bridge at
Yeah.
the Glasgow Arena.
Who are another worthwhile band to check out.
Or one of the best bands I think that's ever been. Like, literally.
I'm not
Like
sure how I feel about Mark Tremonti's Christmas album that he's working on, but
Nah,
we'll see how it shakes out.
leave them be, man. Leave them be.
Well,
but
I think we should kind of like wrap the video up because
yeah,
that was kind of like we were basically on track because I would have normally asked like what you have planned for the future, which obviously more albums, and you've mentioned possibly getting out to streaming, and yeah, maybe we have to get some form of the band back together in a weird online video form.
Yeah, I think that would be fun.
I've got a lot of stupid ideas in this head. Do I have all of the hardware to do it? Not always.
Yeah, but I've got all of the stuff.
As Tenacious D says, sometimes you just need the know-how and the elbow grease.
Yes,
to lead us to a new land.
It's all right. I've got plenty of minging riffs in my brain for new comedy metal, like so.
So watch this space, is what we're saying.
Aye, we're coming for you,
and you'll regret it.
Yeah, well, you might or you might not. I know a lot of people in
we're not going to promise
like
one way or the other.
Yeah, you have to listen to find out.
But yeah, thanks so much for chatting with me and being the third guest for We Need to Talk.
No, it's been great, man. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
But yeah, we will be back. This show will be back with something down the line. Who knows who I'll be talking to next? I'm kind of thinking in my head I should maybe call up some of our college lecturers and see if they
that would be great. Imagine like Tony and Gary on. Like,
it could happen. You forget who you know. This like planning this kind of show has made me kind of go back in the mental Rolodex and being like, they would be interesting to talk to. But
yeah.
Have to reach out. But yes, thank you so much, and there'll be more Nerdy Up North stuff on the channel, I'm sure, live, but this isn't live, so I can't really promise anything because who knows.
We're hacks now, we're pre-recording stuff.
Exactly. Everything's under control.
Yes.
But yes, we'll catch you all on the next one. Bye.